Good evening. It's 7:33 p.m. live stream. What we're going to do tonight is it's not going to be a crazy long show. How you doing, Katniss? How you doing, Garden? Variety, Fletch? I'm just going to review how this article here in a magazine called Talk that was funded by Harvey Weinstein and his brother Bob Weinstein in Miramax shows knowledge, foreshadowing of a September 11th type event or some other type of event. An article which was written clearly based upon the how long it takes these articles to get out there, the pipeline, a pipeline that we've calculated. It was already being planned before 9/11. That's pretty amazing. I don't know many other magazines out there that had articles foreshadowing 9/11 with that level of clarity coming out around that time. It involves Harvey Weinstein's magazine, Talk Magazine, a magazine which had Tucker Carlson on as one of its main editors. Let's not forget that. We have some videos to show to highlight this. I think this will be a lot of fun and very educational. Thank you for joining. Hello, 7:37 p.m. Saturday, October 25th, 2025. To review, Talk Magazine, which first came out in September 1999, was episode 1. Surely it took several months to get this thing together. These things just don't happen overnight. It's not like saying, hey, let's get together and start a Substack, and then 2 days later you're writing posts. Advertisers, you need to get a printer lined up. I've determined it to be 3 to 4 month minimum timeline between the time articles are envisioned, like maybe we should write something about this or this actor or this story, and the time that the article has been written, has been reviewed, and they have it all formatted for that particular issue, has to be printed, has to be distributed nationwide, etc. So when this article came out regarding mostly a Kevin Ingram, a Wall Street bond trader named Kevin Ingram, American, and it came out in the November issue, you could just see that this story was updated. This story was really ready to be read around October 20th, which means the writing of this article started sometime in June or July of 2001. The November issue is also the same issue that has Rudy Giuliani on the cover, and I think is probably more responsible for Rudy Giuliani being called America's mayor than probably just about any other publication. Harvey Weinstein's magazine. Now, Tucker Carlson left Talk Magazine sometime before this article was written. I don't have that exact date pinned down. I can tell that Tucker Carlson was still contributing articles to Talk Magazine in mid to late 2000. I don't have the date of the last time he made a contribution. I don't know if it's fair to say he was an employee of Talk or if he was working for Talk, contracted, paid per article. But I'm going to keep it simple and say Tucker Carlson was part of Talk Magazine. He was working for this magazine. And the fact that Tucker Carlson was working for Harvey Weinstein on this magazine makes it hard for me to believe that there was a huge cavity between the two, that there was a huge space. They must have been able to get along well enough. And it does kind of play into what we saw yesterday in a new Tucker Carlson video being premiered where he's interviewing Cheryl Hines. Cheryl Hines I've never watched an interview of Cheryl Hines before. Cheryl Hines is very, very cautious about everything she says. There were many long pauses. I'm surprised they didn't actually cut out some of the pauses. Now, could they have exaggerated them? I guess, but I don't think they did. Maybe they were even worse, and they actually cut them down a little bit. I don't know, but she was very careful about what she was saying. And why now? Why now are we talking with Harvey Weinstein's ex-partner talking to Cheryl Hines? And Cheryl Hines makes commentary getting into Hollywood, and she didn't work for Harvey Weinstein, but she went to a meeting and she was interviewed by this other Hollywood recruiter or director. And, based upon her story, it was just very odd. The guy invited her back to his room, said, why don't you get yourself comfortable? Why don't you take off your shoes? He actually asked her, how much body hair do you have? I mean, these are... So she's making a statement that she knows or believes anyways, based upon her stories, that she's been through this stuff. And now, so Tucker Carlson is interviewing this, and Tucker Carlson said, well, Harvey Weinstein, yeah, I worked for him, but yeah, he had a bad reputation. He was a jerk. Or it doesn't add up. I'm sorry. I just can't buy it. And if Tucker Carlson knew about all of that stuff, why wasn't he out in front in the Me Too movement or whatever that time was? He seemed to really want to downplay the fact that he had this at least a 1-year relationship with Harvey Weinstein, at least, probably much longer than that. And, of course, he's been very supportive of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for the most part, I would say, Tucker Carlson, as well as the other people around Tucker Carlson, such as Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon, also an enormous supporter of RFK Jr. And Steve Bannon definitely go back a long ways, easily with Larry David. And I think Steve Bannon knew Cheryl Hines, current wife, just in case you forgot, of RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., current HHS Secretary of the United States of America. Anyways, behind the scenes here, you have Harvey Weinstein. And this article was being written before 9/11. The article is about, I'm going to summarize it in the simplest way as I can. Hello, Christy. Hello, Artie. Good to have you here. Hello, Vilma. So I'm going to review this the story as simple as possible, okay? The simple story is there is a man named Randy Glass who lived in Florida, American living in Florida, white guy, who was a jeweler, and as the story has it, had got caught swindling some people and then became an asset of the ATF. And this man, Randy Glass, was then used as the ATF for sting operations because there was concerns that foreign people who do not like America were trying to buy weapons which could be used against America. That was the concern, okay? So Randy Glass I don't have a deep background on him, but he's a jeweler who was found guilty of some stuff, and in order to get out of the sentencing, he became an intelligence asset. And then this Randy Glass, through his variety of escapades, met a couple of Middle Eastern people who were living in the United States, and then eventually came into the company of another American, a black American named Kevin Ingram, who you see here, who is, disgustingly colored in with red eyes and dollar signs. So Kevin Ingram, at the time in 1999 and 2000, was in his late 30s and was considered to be one of the more promising black Americans in the world of business and finance. Black Enterprise magazine would typically have him on a top 25 in the United States of America, like under 40, with a bright future. There's some possibilities that Kevin Ingram has a family background in the world of intelligence. That's very possible, or academia, which might have meant that his story is not 100% rags to riches. I don't want to be so quick to take that away, because I honestly don't know, but the door has to remain open. The legend, though, was that he really was a true rags to riches story. And I guess, as the articles talk about, he ran into some job problems, but he was so successful that he really liked to spend money, and he liked to date supermodels, and he found this opportunity, to be a middleman or to provide cash through his money laundering operation, where he would work with this Randy Glass, and they would find to make funds available for foreign people who the ATF was finding, potential terrorists, to buy weapons, including machine guns, including rockets, like shoulder-mounted rockets.
They're called Stinger missiles.
Even nuclear weapon components, and even explosive materials. All kinds of things, all kinds of bad stuff. Now, no weapons or whatever were actually sold, to my knowledge, to foreign people. However, this story, that supposedly they found a couple of fish who were trying to bite, and they might have been the Taliban, it might have been Osama bin Laden, and who knows who else, all in the summer of 2001. And then these articles were being published in the summer of 2001 that there were several Americans involved in a sting operation, which was now providing documentation that terrorists were trying to acquire weapons, including explosives, machine guns, rockets, and even nuclear weapon components. This is all documented. Of course, the fact that it's documented doesn't mean it's true. Say it with me. Just because it's documented, that doesn't mean it's true. But it is true that it was documented. And that in and of itself makes it evidence. Evidence doesn't necessarily mean that what the evidence talks about is true, but somehow these things wound up in writing and in magazines and publications and sting operations and court documents and everything else. And then he actually was pleading guilty to this Kevin Ingram, at the end of August of 2001. And then September 11th happened. So what they were providing was this incredible backstory, which documents interest of Middle Easterners and of terrorists in acquiring weapons. And, of course, the weapons were going to come from the U.S. military, because I guess that there's losers and drug addicts in the U.S. military, which all of these people probably agree should be totally defunded because they're nothing other than losers and drug addicts. Those aren't my words, okay? Those are the words of people that want to defund the U.S. military so that those funds can be used for other things. And it's not even that they themselves believe that military personnel are all losers and drug addicts. It's just business, and they want the money to go elsewhere. Probably things related to the advancement of the human genome, okay? And they think this whole war thing is obsolete. We should be advancing the future of genetics. So, the story is a 12-page article. 12 pages is a lot in a big magazine like this about Kevin Ingram and about his backstory, which I think here is fabricated, or how would you say, augmented. Randy Glass a little bit, and what they were pleading guilty to. Now, one more crazy data point, and this is something that you can't make up. After Kevin Ingram was working with Goldman Sachs and then Deutsche Bank, he left to start his own little operation, his own little side business, I guess, where he was going to be making funds available for this arms sale business, okay? And he rented space on the 85th floor of the World Trade Center, South Tower, where the plane hit. That is a 1 in a million. That's 1 in a million. First of all, why would you put Look, the World Trade Center is not cheap. It is not a cheap office space. And if he's only making a couple $100,000, why is he leasing space where the plane hits in the World Trade Center just 2 weeks after he pleads guilty in 2001? So the article was written before 9/11. The article talks about terrorist events potentially happening, which is known as 9/11, and his office was in the South Tower where the plane hit. I don't mean like it was like on the 20th floor. I mean it was on floor 84 where the plane hit. And it's in Harvey Weinstein's magazine. We're not talking like Joe Lindquist, somebody that no one knows anything about. We're talking Harvey Weinstein's magazine, where Harvey Weinstein had hired Tucker Carlson. Oh, and it just keeps getting better than that, because between the time that Kevin Ingram supposedly was having second thoughts about this bond career, where he had a team of like 100 people. It's not like he's doing bad. He's making millions of dollars a year. He tried to set up a restaurant in Harlem, and the same establishment Minton's, which is like a classic jazz club or something like that in Harlem, which up until that time, for the previous 3 years, was being revitalized by Robert De Niro. But it gets better.
And if you order right now, we'll send you the matching paring knife and bread knife.
Now that's a deal.
And during this special offer, you'll also get our special cutting board, knife holder, and cleaning cloth with special come-on cleaning solution, good for your knives, counters, and laundry.
This is amazing.
We're not done yet. You'll also get the mixing bowl set, ice cream trays, an inflatable chair, glow sticks, a shower caddy, fridge magnets, an ironing board with shirt rack, an electronic Sudoku puzzle generator, language translator, mouse pad, and a mascot outfit.
But it gets better because, I don't know if this article says it, but other articles say it, okay? Randy Glass was meeting these Middle Eastern people to talk business, to talk about, what type of rocket launchers, and getting quotes that they wanted to kill Americans, okay? They recorded all this stuff, okay? In a Tribeca restaurant that was owned by Robert De Niro. Oh, that's right. Robert De Niro, after 9/11, set up the Tribeca Film Festival. Oh, that's right. Robert De Niro is really good friends with, who's that fat guy that's accused of, basically raping women? Oh, Harvey Weinstein. This magazine is just fire. And the magazine coming out, or at least starting in September of 1999, kind of came out right after JFK Jr. had died in a plane crash, possibly assassinated, but a lot of people don't want to say that. And RFK Jr. is being positioned at that time for potentially becoming a senator, state senator for the state of New York, where he is working. Now, RFK Jr. is encouraged at some point to step aside because Hillary Clinton is moving in, and now Hillary Clinton is going to be seen potentially as a new U.S. senator. I'm not really sure what was going on behind the scenes with that. If it was a handshake agreement, maybe they thought that RFK Jr. was going to poll much weaker than they had hoped. I'm not really sure. Or maybe RFK Jr. wasn't ready. Maybe the plan really was JFK Jr. to run for senator. And RFK Jr., they just couldn't get him into position fast enough. He needed too much work. Maybe that's what there was, okay? And that's why Hillary Clinton needed to secure that Senate seat. So that's the big story here. And even though he pled guilty, Kevin Ingram wound up serving like only just a few months in jail. I mean, it was months. It was weeks. It's probably 20 or less weeks. So it's not that he is being accused of providing stuff which was sold and was used, okay? But it's just odd, okay? And there's another element to this where when Randy Glass was, and there's believe it or not, there's a Dateline episode about it. NBC Dateline in August of 2002 did a whole 1 hour on this. I hope you guys are still there listening. I've been searching for it. I can't find it. ABC Dateline did 1 entire hour called Road to Terror or something like that in August of 2002. I cannot find it. I did find the transcript to it. Which was archived on someone else's 9/11 timeline, which is stored in the cloud somewhere. So I have the transcript. But I found a couple of clips from it. And what I'm going to do now over the next, because I want to finish up by around 8:30 or so, is I'm just going to play a couple of the clips that I did find. Now, I will download these and archive them separately. Okay? I will archive these separately. Let's see here. Here we go. So this is a video, and I believe this is from August of 2002. Okay, August of 2002. You may be unconvinced at this point that I'm talking about something that's real. That maybe it's sort of an eclectic story that was on the side, not a big deal. This was a big enough deal to be on NBC Dateline for an hour. It's also a big enough deal for little bits of this to be in Whitney Webb books and some bits not. And I skimmed through a few other narrative controlling 9/11 books. And again, they will include some bits of this and they will exclude other bits of this. So this is a very interesting story because it shows how not everyone is 100% read in the program. If you have all the media 100% read in about everything that's going on, someone's going to slip. All right? You need to keep that circle very small and very tight and assume that with a very small, tight circle of people that you can control a lot of the media. But sometimes, every once in a while, someone goes off script or maybe says a little bit too much about something. Or even worse, the plan doesn't go according to plan. And then you can see narratives getting adjusted in real time. So I wanted to highlight that this was big enough to be on NBC Dateline. There's a 1 hour, which means it's 50 minutes after commercials, August 2002 NBC Dateline called Path to Terror or The Road to Terror. It's a whole 1 hour on this story, and which might include some interviews with this Kevin Ingram, but I'm going to play what we have. This is like a 5 or 6 minute clip that is on another channel on YouTube.
It was over a year before 9/11. A Pakistani British man told the FBI an incredible tale that he'd been trained by followers of Osama bin Laden to hijack airplanes, and he confessed he was now in America to carry out an attack.
After gambling away money sent to him for flight training and afraid Al-Qaeda would come after him for betrayal, he turned himself into the FBI. He detailed the plot to fly a hijacked plane into the World Trade Center, in which he was a part. This was April of 2000. A member of the attacks turned himself in and confessed to the attacks. He also disclosed that other agents were inside the United States.
Khan tells NBC News that for the next few weeks, he was trained by Al-Qaeda to hijack passenger planes and sent to the U.S. But when he told the FBI, headquarters was skeptical and ordered him released.
I told him before the 9.
Now, this part and this guy in particular is not in the story in the Harvey Weinstein article that was made available for reading in October of 2001, meaning it was written long before that.
11, about more than a year, we hijacking in America Airlines.
Khan says he was sent to Lahore, Pakistan, and along with perhaps 30 others, taught hijacking basics. Did you think about all the other people you would have killed?
No.
You didn't care?
Not that time. If I die, it doesn't matter. Because this life anyway, it's no good.
After about a week, Khan says he was given money to fly from Pakistan to Doha, Qatar, London, Zurich, back to London, then to New York, observing flight operations. Upon landing at JFK Airport, Khan says he was supposed to go to this taxi stand, find a man in a white prayer cap, and use a code. Khan claims he got cold feet. Instead of meeting his contact, he slipped away, gambled away all his money, and in fear turned himself in and confessed.
To Pakistan, I know about this hijacking, something going on.
For 3 weeks, the FBI in Newark interrogated Khan, created composite drawings of his terrorist.
So we're supposed to believe that there's just word on the street in Pakistan all the time that people are planning to do some hijackings and blow up America.
Trainer and a fellow student. NBC News has learned Khan passed not one, but 2 polygraphs. A former FBI official says Newark agents believed him, but word came from headquarters, quote, return him to London and forget about it.
Another man, Randy Glass, claimed he knew of the coming attacks. Glass was an undercover operative trusted by the U.S. working for the FBI as an informant.
Dateline obtained dozens of tapes of a government informant talking with people about arming terrorists, including this New Jersey man named Dia Moishan.
I'll take you to the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
The talk is...
That's an interesting that they actually have that photo there with Randy Glass on the side and then Dia Moishan. Now I know how to pronounce the name anyways. That's good. It came out in a much later article that was recently run by the New York Magazine. There we go. It's not the same photo, but that's Randy Glass in the middle. This is Dia Moishan over here, and this is Kevin Ingram. So you can tell it's the same shirt. I think that they actually clipped. They reversed the photo and then clipped Kevin Ingram out. And the fact that they don't mention Kevin Ingram in the Dateline 2002, the fact that Kevin Ingram is never mentioned in a Whitney Webb book, the fact that Kevin Ingram is just kind of gone. He did his 5 months for something which I guess if he actually did, he should be in the prison the rest of his life for. But Randy Glass remains the man from Boca Raton, Florida, the jewel heist guy who the ATF is using to set up sting operations.
Another man, Randy Glass, claimed he knew of the coming attacks. Glass was an undercover operative trusted by the U.S. working for the FBI as an informant.
Says he knew about 9/11 in 2000.
Obtained dozens of tapes of a government informant talking with people about arming terrorists, including this New Jersey man named Dia Moishan.
I'll take you to the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
The talk is deadly serious.
I'll kill him. I'll kill you.
And there's no attempt to conceal who might ultimately receive the weapons.
He is very connected to the Taliban. You know who supplies him with money? Who? Osama bin Laden.
I mean, it's really sad in retrospect that I and hundreds of millions of other Americans believed that Middle Easterners attacked America. And we have shocking proof because there's someone with a Middle Eastern accent on a video who's caught up in which is probably a totally staged sting operation, saying that I know that Osama bin Laden wants to buy weapons, and I know that he's with the Taliban and he wants to kill America, and I'm going to kill you. And people are like, oh my goodness, they're saying all the things. Oh, it must be true. And this is the shocking proof. And therefore, there must have been hijackers. And we know that we see these video clips played over and over again. And Osama bin Laden with his machine gun and sandals walking through the desert.
The conversations were recorded by Randy Glass, a con man in trouble with the law who offered to go undercover and pose as a weapons dealer.
The story was that I had people that were stealing these military weapons.
From the U.S. military.
Correct, from the U.S. military.
The investigation, which ran...
And remember, Harvey Weinstein also paid for a movie to be made called Buffalo Soldiers, which premiered on September 9th, 2001. Also Miramax, which portrayed American military personnel in Germany who liked to do heroin while driving around M1 Abrams tanks. And they got caught up killing a couple of mid-level officers in the U.S. military, coming into ownership of several $1 million worth of equipment. And then they sold the equipment to Middle Easterners and a Turkish man, potentially terrorists, so that they could get money to buy even more drugs. I shit you not. That is the movie Buffalo Soldiers with Ed Harris, who plays the dad, by the way, in the movie Truman Show, and Joaquin Phoenix, who years later is the Joker. The Joker portraying the breakdown of the United States of America.
Where for the movie climax, Joaquin Phoenix's character playing the Joker goes on to a late-night talk show where that talk show host is played by Robert De Niro, representing the old world media, and then Joaquin Phoenix's character, the Joker, assassinates him on live television.
How about another joke, Murray?
No, I think we've had enough of your jokes.
What do you get?
I don't think so.
When you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash!
Call the police,
I'll
Gene.
tell you what you get!
Call the police.
You get what you fucking deserve!
Where the real-life Robert De Niro owned the restaurant where these guys are getting together to talk about weapons trades, and was trying to bring back the restaurant in Harlem that later, or then subsequently, this Kevin Ingram was trying to bankroll and bring back to life.
So Harvey Weinstein has Buffalo Soldiers with Joaquin Phoenix coming out, portraying, American military personnel as drug-addicted pieces of crap who likes to sell American weapons to terrorists to get money for more drugs. At the same time, he has a magazine out there talking about, this sting operation where they're selling weapons to terrorists, and then in return, weapons including machine guns, rocket launchers, anti-aircraft equipment, and even nuclear weapon components. And in return for money, And again, I shit you not, heroin. This is part of the FBI, the FOIAs. And Kevin Ingram is a 38-year-old, by all accounts, very successful, clean cut. He's in the Wall Street Journal, bond trader. I'm not saying he's a man of God going to heaven, but as upstanding as you could imagine in that case. But by the year 2001, he is now reimagined, okay, as successful. He with a degree in MIT, but he's usually late to work. He complains a lot about discrimination. He believes he gets laid off because he's black, and he likes to spend his money on diamonds and fast cars and supermodels. And he's so caught up in spending money and playing basketball with P. Diddy on the weekends, or failing to start a restaurant in Harlem, Minton's, with Robert De Niro, that now he has turned to a life of crime of laundering money to make weapons available for Middle Eastern terrorists right before 9/11. That is quite a U-turn, which I guess is possible. But then when you consider the fact that after his reimagined life as this man who just likes to spend money on women and diamonds and fast cars and P. Diddy and steaks and foie gras with Robert De Niro, he decides to set up shop for his Taliban weapon, whatever you call it, business on the 84th floor of the South Tower, where the plane hit 2 weeks after he pleads guilty. And then what happens is, guess what? September 11th, 2001, that's where the plane hits. Buildings are collapsed. Buildings are blown up. Buildings are blown up. Kevin Ingram's story, even though it was projected to be the story of 2002, you'll never hear about it again. It just kind of disappeared. Recently, they've been dusting it off, though. They've been talking about it again in New York Times. And the reason why it's coming up recently, and you'll see it mentioned in the New York Times, his story has evolved even further, where he says that he lost out the partner seat to Steve Mnuchin. So at one point, he lost out because, I don't know, he wasn't showing up to, I don't know, it doesn't even make any sense. But now, as of today, he says he lost his seat to Steve Mnuchin. And we know Steve Mnuchin has had an alliance of sorts with Trump. But it gets worse than that, because it also then goes on to say that in 1998, then businessman Donald Trump called Ingram's colleague Mike Offit.
This is just speculation, and it is unlikely, but it would be pretty wild if this Mike Offit is related to Paul Offit of Children's Hospital down in Philadelphia. The very well-known pro-vaccine person that has been popping up on so many documentaries lately, including the one which bashes, of all people, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And it would be really odd because Kevin Ingram's son Bryce works at Philadelphia Children's Hospital, not in the Department of Immunology, but not that far away from Paul Offit. It wouldn't be a big surprise if they even knew each other.
Requesting a $125 million loan to renovate 40 Wall Street, and then Ingram met with Trump at his office to negotiate the loan. While Ingram had personally opposed the loan, the transaction was made in April 1998. So this suggests that now Trump was working with Kevin Ingram, which may be totally true. I don't know, all right? But as of 2001, that was not part of the story. But now Kevin Ingram, the bond trader who convicted guilty, and he's guilty, at least as far as pleading guilty goes, right, of having been scummy enough to provide money for weapon dealers, or I should say to steal equipment from the U.S. military and then to sell it to known terrorists. And I guess Donald Trump's judgment is cloudy enough to have been okay to work with this Kevin Ingram, a man that has been forgotten about for 16, 18 years, but now they're dusting it off, right? Because they can probably respin. So this is either reinventing the past, making new information, making up new stories to hang on Trump, and it sounds like I'm being a Trump apologist. You can view that if you like it. You can view this as a Trump apologist if you want. I see it as, if this was true, why didn't this come up until now? What? Someone just figured this out? This must have been known. To me, this sounds like inventing things to hang on Trump. If you want to hang things on Trump, talk about the opioid epidemic. If you want to hang things on Trump, talk about the hospital protocols, which included oxygen, and that there's people within the United States that are willing to write hospital protocols to mass murder people. If you want to hang things on Trump, there are things that you can hang on Trump involving hundreds of thousands, if not a million or more potential lives lost. There's plenty of things to hang on Trump, although I won't hang those on Trump exclusively because I know they are not exclusively Trump's problems. I do wish he would talk about them, though. However, they are legitimate things to be upset at Trump for. Even if he can't solve them, why can't he at least talk about them more? But okay. So the thing is that they're bringing this guy, Kevin Ingram, back from the dead, little by little. And I think right now the odds are, I think, less than 50-50. Right now it's probably a 1 in 3 that Kevin Ingram's going to wind up on Tucker Carlson sometime within the next year. Or someone in this circle, okay? The fact that I'm talking about it now is probably lowering the odds. So, of course, I'm not going to be able to prove myself right. I'm doing something that's going to change the future. I am. But I have to tell it. I have to say this. This is fascinating. But there's another part about this story why we need to keep watching here, and I want to finish it in under 60 minutes. That matters a lot based upon other things that I've been talking
from
about.
1998 to June 2001 was orchestrated by agents from the Florida offices of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and the FBI. Randy Glass's undercover work eventually led to a dinner meeting in New York with a mysterious man from Pakistan named R.G. Abbas.
And that happened in the Tribeca restaurant, I think the one owned by Robert De Niro.
Glass says made no attempt to hide his feelings for Americans.
Told me that Americans...
And just to remind you, this is a NBC Dateline August 2002 video. I know, or I've heard that there is a full 1 hour NBC Dateline from August of 2002 about Randy Glass. It may also clip out Kevin Ingram, but it definitely Randy Glass and the rest of this story. I would love to acquire that. I found the transcript for it, which I've not read yet, but I have found the printed transcript on a backup site somewhere. I just don't have the video. I think the video would be very powerful. But this is from August of 2002, and this is the Randy Glass, the jewel swindler, whatever you want to call him. He probably committed a crime so that he could play this part. Who is now working with the ATF to help set up people and find potential terrorists.
Or the enemy. And he looked around the restaurant and he said, we would have no problem with blowing up this entire restaurant.
We would have no problem blowing up this entire restaurant.
Because it's full of Americans.
And Glass says Abbas's people wanted to buy all sorts of weapons, even components for a nuclear weapon.
And there you go. NBC Dateline said it. And these are, it's not going to be little boy. Of course, again, nukes don't exist. But it's not going to be a massive nuclear weapon. It's going to be a suitcase nuke. In 2002, there was discussion. In 2001, there was discussion. In the Harvey Weinstein article, there was discussion of small nuclear devices. And even more upsetting, on September 10th, 2001, then Senator Joe Biden was talking about suitcase nukes. And even more upsetting than that, for 1 to 2 years beforehand, the man who is now currently the super whistleblower of all the 9/11 truth, this whole Able Danger program, Kurt Weldon of Pennsylvania, his job was to talk about the risks of suitcase nukes. Something which, again, everyone has forgotten about. Oh, it's just the planes, and I guess they had a lot of gas in them, and, I don't know, buildings just blow up like that, I guess, when planes hit them.
They inquired if it was available.
And you said?
Yes.
And they responded?
They were interested.
Today, in a phone conversation with Dateline, Abbas denied trying to buy weapons. But Dick Stoltz, one of the federal agents who worked on the case, said the people he was dealing with meant business. You had to realize that the people being talked about as customers for these weapons were the most wanted terrorists in the world. That's correct. Bin Laden? Correct. Did you think they were serious? Oh, absolutely.
So that's right. So people who are accused of, and again, I think that they're even faking the people that are saying that they knew Osama bin Laden. And yeah, I hang out with Osama bin Laden. We kick back some beers on Sunday nights or whatever the drinking night is out in Afghanistan. And yeah, we were going to buy weapons and we want to kill Americans. I think that's all fabricated as well. Either way, though, you know, if that's true, well, that would mean that the Harvey Weinstein magazine had documented this story before 9/11, including the people that they were, I guess, working with, if they were real, were connected to Osama bin Laden. The same magazine, by the way, Talk Magazine, which did at least, I don't know, 6 or 10 articles about Osama bin Laden. Very strange thing for a magazine that wants to focus on hit movies. Before 9/11, it was already infatuated with the possibilities of terrorist attacks in Osama bin Laden and also involving Saddam Hussein.
Glass recorded his meetings, and on July 22nd, 1999, he wiretapped a meeting at the Tribeca Grill with an arms buyer.
A Tribeca Grill owned by Robert De Niro, thank you.
Raja Ghulam Abbas.
Robert De Niro, by the way, did the audio for 9/11. There was a movie, 9/11, that came out 1 year afterwards, like a memorial, 1 year memorial. That narration was done by Robert De Niro. And then Robert De Niro starts the Tribeca Film Festival in honor of 9/11. Robert De Niro has a lot of weird 9/11 stuff going on in his timeline, including work with Harvey Weinstein, who he's really close with, buddies with, and supporting Hillary Clinton, who came in to become senator, I guess because RFK Jr., who they all like, wasn't capable of becoming senator yet. They killed John F. Kennedy Jr. He wasn't willing to be in a Truman Show anymore, or he never really accepted that being in a Truman Show. RFK Jr. was willing to accept being in a Truman Show, but he wasn't ready to be senator yet. So they had to bring in Hillary Clinton.
During the course of the conversation, I asked him exactly what his intentions were. After dinner, as we walked outside, he pointed in the direction of the World Trade Center.
He even said,
and said, "Those towers are coming down."
Randy Glass became so concerned about what he was learning during his work as an informant that he wrote a letter to...
He even said the towers are coming down. And then he went on to work with Kevin Ingram, whose office was on the 84th floor where the planes hit.
Senator Bob Graham.
Francis X. Taylor told Randy Glass, "We know all about planes being flown into the World Trade Center." Randy Glass hadn't mentioned planes. He had mentioned a threat that he knew about from these Pakistani spies who were trying to buy arms on the international market. So Randy Glass really starts freaking out. He starts faxing Senator Bob Graham and other people this information.
And that, listen to what he says again here, okay? This is little things leaking through because not everyone is 100% on board with what was going to happen or what had happened. Listen again.
That he knew about from these Pakistani spies who were trying to buy arms on the international market. So Randy Glass really starts freaking out. He starts faxing Senator Bob Graham and other people this information. And you can see this in my book. Here, let me grab a copy here. This is something I put in the book on the inside back cover in orange is a facsimile of the actual fax that Randy Glass was trying to fax at that time. And it's a pretty amazing document. You know, he said something like, "I know I'm way in over my head here, but this thread that I know about, the thing that the State Department said about planes being used, you know, even the agents I'm working with are really concerned, and please have somebody call me."
So you can see they have to now keep seeding in, planes, but beforehand, there was no mention of planes. All they already knew the towers were coming down. So if the towers were going to come down, and if they knew they were going to come down, and Randy Glass is being accused of making explosives material and potentially components of nuclear weapons, of small nuclear weapon devices. The same thing Senator Biden mentioned on September 10th, 2001. But not plane hijackings. The only thing they mentioned about plane hijacking so far, I kid you not, okay, is learning how to use a crop duster for dropping biological weapons on crowds. And using a small plane for the delivery of a nuclear weapon device into a building. That is right. This is what Senator Biden was talking about on September 10th, 2001. Why would you spend billions of dollars to build a missile to send a nuclear weapon into the World Trade Center when you could fly it in on a small plane? And the terrorists were all trained on small planes. No 747s required. Last thing I'm going to play here is a little bit of audio, which I've gathered from another channel. A collection of testimonies of people. This was filmed on September 11th, 2001, midday. These are video accounts of what people saw and experienced on the day of September 11th, 2001. Very important.
When the collapse finally starts, the antenna started just a little bit before the exterior of the building started. And that tells us that the core columns let go first.
At 10:28 a.m., the weakened core columns of the North Tower finally give out in the intense heat of the...
They pulled on the columns, blowing them inward.
This is what we're supposed to believe.
In some areas.
This is the government narrative.
The columns reached the breaking point.
Suddenly the columns snapped, and as a result, the entire top of the building came down.
See the dust jets? Dust jets don't happen like that. You don't get explosions like that way out to the side when the columns are just melting. Okay, so let's listen to what some of the people said.
I think a bomb went off in the lobby first, then a plane hit the building. I think a bomb went off in the lobby first, then a plane hit the building. But then another plane hit the other building. But when I was coming through the doors on the other side of the Trade Center, either they blew the lobby up or something, because it blew the glass out of the doors and knocked us all down, and I got smoke and everything on me. I just feel a little shook up because I got blasted, so.
Look at the building being spread all over the place. Let's say that the building had explosives in it, okay? Why was the building blown up in a way to make it look like there was a bomb in it? Why is it that Building 7 went cleanly down as if it was brought down by controlled demolition, but the World Trade Center went all over the place? It's almost as if when they planted the explosives in the World Trade Center, North and South Tower, they did so in a way so that it would look like it was being blown up. Think about that. I'm not saying it accidentally looks like it was being blown up. I'm telling you that they wanted it to look like it was being blown up. So why would they only tell a story today of it was planes and I guess it melted and then it got really mushy and then it came down, when somebody went to great lengths to make it look like it blew up? Look, if it was just like one part of the building that blew up, one corner of one floor, okay, then it gets kind of weird. But no, I'm talking floor after floor after floor after floor. And there's a lot of floors, 100 stories, all went all over the place as if it was blown up. Everyone was talking about suitcase nukes going into this. It's not hard to put this stuff together. Let's listen to a few more testimonies because there's many. Okay, the audio here is bad. The original audio. Smoke was in the train station.
Tell us what you saw when you exited the subway station due to a lack of smoke. Eileen.
It was very smoky, and then we exited on Church Street out of the pit.
How was there explosions and smoke in the train station if the planes hit 70, 80 stories up?
Train station.
At the time, I was actually...
Even the Stephanopoulos dude. Even he's repeating what he heard.
Heading towards the World Trade Center right around Franklin Street. And after the first explosion, the subway station started to fill with smoke. The subway cars started to fill with smoke, and the subways actually stopped.
The ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby where they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run. And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds in the first plane hit.
They were having coffee in the World Trade Center when the first plane struck.
And all of a sudden, it sounded like, I don't know where the subway is, but it sounded like a subway collision, a bomb, and it was just pounding, boom, 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 and I literally thought the subway had exploded and all the cars put the land on top of it. It was so loud. And
I was entering the building on the lobby level. I was in the revolving doors when the plane hit the building.
David Dre worked in number 1 World Trade Center.
One of the elevators, I think, came crashing to the lobby level, and all this debris came flying out of it. And a fireball emerged from the elevator lobby and was coming toward me.
I was standing next to One World Trade Center, and then all of a sudden I heard rumbling, and we all started running away from it. The glass blew out and threw me onto the sidewalk, and I couldn't see for 20 seconds.
So here's the deal: if the World Trade Center was blown up, why did Jason Burmis and every other shithead at the 9/11 Truth Summit waste 3 days talking about hijackers?
The buildings were designed to be able to handle the impact of an airplane.
I'll bet you those buildings could have been hit by 20 planes each, and they still would have been standing. If it doesn't matter if there was hit by a plane, why are we only talking about hijackers? And why were all of these stories, which were being seeded before 9/11, about bombs? They were about blowing up the World Trade Center, taking it down. Not, hey, let's fly a small plane into it and see what happens. Let's see if maybe, I don't know, we can set enough, copier paper on fire. And you know what? The response, I already know. I used to make competitive battle cards as a competitive intelligence analyst. The response to this is always going to be, well, I guess you don't believe there's no planes. And then what will happen is you'll spend the rest of your life analyzing every little video, pixel by pixel, every little angle of every potential plane or non-plane or weird shadow or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if 20 planes hit the buildings. It is an irrelevant conversation. Just like it doesn't matter, hey, I found a sequence of coronavirus. I guess the Chinese made it in the laboratory. I guess it's Peter Daszak. It doesn't matter when you can already prove several 100,000, if not 1 million or more deaths. Simply, some were expected because of the population pyramid, several hundred additional thousand deaths from an opioid epidemic engineered, and then hospital protocols, and then potentially additional deaths of people that were killed with mRNA shots, which were not placebos. Instead, the moment you say that, oh, I guess you don't believe in viruses, do you? Oh, it's the same nonsense. The pivot, the defense is always, let's talk about the hijackers. Let's talk about the planes. Do you believe in planes? Were there no planes? Maybe the buildings were holographs. Hey, let's invite our guest speaker to our 9/11 Truth Summit who believes that there's Jewish satellites flying around blowing up buildings with lasers, as some part of Jewish Greater Israel conspiracy theory or something like that. Let's talk about George Bush stock trades. You see how it's done? You see how it's done? They want people to focus on something so tiny and irrelevant. And let's say the planes really were hijacked. They really did hit. There really were the stated number of passengers on each of the planes. Okay, fine. There were still explosives in the buildings. which means the buildings were going to come down even if the planes didn't hit them. Now that we've established these buildings were rigged, they were going to come down. There were already explosions before, simultaneous with, in completely different areas at the times the planes hit them. Now, here's another gotcha. If the buildings were going to come down anyways, why do you need to convince someone to, for a religious reason, fly a plane into the building? Why is that even necessary? Oh, to convince people that it wasn't the explosions. Okay, that's fine. Now, if you were trying to blow up the buildings for whatever reason, okay, you already got the explosives in there, wouldn't it be a whole lot easier to fake a plane going into the building? I mean, dress up a missile or have a remote control plane fly in. Wouldn't that be a whole lot easier to do? I mean, you don't want someone getting cold feet, do you? You don't want that. You don't want them missing the building. You don't want that either. You have to think about this stuff. And again, why were they trying to blow up these beautiful buildings? What's there to be gained from that? And I'll tell you what, it's not because George Bush's uncle's friend wanted to make $20 million shorting stock for Boeing. And it's not because a Jewish guy wanted to make an extra $100 million or whatever it is with building insurance. If you think the entirety of all the intelligence services and all the U.S. military and all the world governments and the United Nations and all the police of New York City and FEMA and the CIA and the NSA and every other agency you can think of were all corrupted so one guy can make $100 million, you have a screw loose and you don't belong doing this. Maybe, though, now that we can come to our senses and I can wrap up. But maybe it was already understood in the 1980s that the future of military was changing. They already knew computers were taking over. The movie War Games tells you so much more than what you think. The movie War Games shows military personnel in an incredibly unflattering light. The movie War Games shows the future is computers. And, of course, those computers can also be dual-purposed to help us with the Human Genome Project. That's what the movie War Games tells us. The people who were the computer professionals were way classier and cooler and hip than the old, fat military white guys in the movie War Games. So, what's the military going to do? Because the military is our last line of defense against enemies, foreign and domestic. Not to mention, it's a huge pile of money which can be spent on other things such as studying and advancing the human genome. Well, this is one thing that you can do, is if the military is in the way, you can use the military for experimental gene therapy. And in fact, the military has 3 million personnel. And if you can keep them around long enough, you already got the VA, you can use them from the time of injection to the time of their death as test animals for experimental gene therapy vaccines. So if you have a plane, maybe a crop duster, flying around, maybe a couple of them were hijacked, flying around or stolen, dropping in some stuff on crowds in November or December of 2001, maybe even the buildings, the planes are remote controlled. You say there's a pilot, but they're actually remote controlled. You fly them into the buildings, and then the buildings blow up because they had suitcase nukes on them. Of course, we know suitcase nukes are real. Now we have to accept that they're real because they're being documented in things such as this article, which initially broke in Harvey Weinstein's magazine. And on September 9th, 2001, a book by Judith Miller, which every other coward, loser, failure of a citizen journalist will never talk about. And I did a whole series on it, 24 hours long. I review the book, I play the narration, I read the 30 to 40% that's missing from the Amazon Audible audiobook, and I did additional shows to go into the details. This talks about, the very first sentence is about anthrax vaccines. It talks about the Human Genome Project. It talks about the experimental DNA vaccines on anthrax being used on the U.S. military. It talks about how great an opportunity it would be should there be a biological terror attack in a major U.S. metropolitan center. And it talks about, even includes the people that went on to run the 9/11 Commission. In other words, motive. That's my show for tonight. Love you guys much. See you tomorrow.